call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors, the regular meeting of May 8th, 2018 to order. And let's see, Ryan, would you lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ryan. So are there any corrections or deletions to the agenda, Board? Julie?
Chairman Schofield, I just want to correct that Mr. Jim Branham will be giving the presentation on behalf of the Sierra Nevada Conservancy.
Very good. Public? Seeing none? We'll accept that. And so the first item of business we have is the public comment. Members of the public shall be allowed to address the board on items not appearing on the agenda that are of interest to the public and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. So if you'd like to speak at this time, if you'd take a seat up here, give us your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Tom Peck, and I am a volunteer for the Fire Safe Council, and I've been working on the SNAP program, which is providing low-income seniors free reduction of fuel on their property and reducing and creating a defensible space. I'm here to question the termination of Joanne Drummond as the executive director of the Fire Safe Council. In 2006, the Fire Safe Council collapsed. She was hired to reorganize it. Over the last 12 years, she has had many, many accomplishments, including setting up the chipping program, the Scotch Broom Challenge, AmeriCorps Summer Youth Program, the SNAP program, a Defensible Space Advisory Board, the Hazardous Assessment Program, and most importantly, she set up the FireWise Coalition. There are 24 communities in the FireWise Coalition. This is more than the entire state of California. These people have been trained and they're organized, removing fire debris on their property and talking to neighbors who are reluctant to do that and trying to make Nevada County a safe place if there's a big fire. Joanne has received numerous awards for her excellent performance. Last year she received the International Association of Fire Chiefs Award for her performance. She has raised millions of dollars for this county. Last year she raised $1.2 million for the county. There is millions of dollars, I am told, in the works for grants that are waiting to be administered. If she is terminated, this money will go away, and the FireWise Council will crumble, I assure you. This matter is a very serious matter, and I hope this Board of Supervisors takes it seriously. Joanne Drummond is a treasure to this county. She's done so much for fire prevention, and she needs to be supported. And I'm asking that her job be rescinded, that this body, which there are some members on this body, on the board of the Fire Safe Council, examine and investigate what's gone on, and her job be, her position be reinstated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. Now, I do want to say that in the public comment, it is the public can speak on subject matter jurisdiction of the board. We have no jurisdiction over the Fire Safe Council. We can't even, we cannot, excuse me, Mr. Peck, we cannot even speak about personnel issues with the Fire Safe Council. You need to be speaking with them directly. So I just pass this on to others. I'll listen to your 3 minutes if you wish, but again, we have no authority over the council.
Yeah, but do you represent the
yes, Mr. Peck, you get my message. Thank you very much.
Sure.
My name is Bill Wilson. I represent the Lake Vera Round Mountain FireWise Association of over 830 people. Okay, I am a defensible space advisor for the last 11 years. Okay, I am emeritus college instructor, and the concern I have is the fact that Nevada County is very unique in the Sierra Nevadas, in the fact that we have two quality public fire information entities that do not exist elsewhere. One, and these are led by three exceptional women. Okay, the Office of the Nevada County Fire Safe Council and its executive director, Joanne Drummond, and of course, UBNet with Pascal Fusshaller and Susan Levitz. The Board of Supervisors needs to immediately open an independent investigation into the circumstances leading to the non-renewal of Ms. Drummond's contract. Many gray areas of information indicate the serious need for further investigation of the legality of past and current practices of the Fire Safe Council of Nevada County Board of Directors. This is a self-elected body that has several board members recently resigning and is in an unstable state, which should have direct concern to the Board of Supervisors. Okay, more than a dozen aspiring fire safe communities are waiting to be informed of compliance and need processing. That's double the amount that we currently have. Okay, this has serious impacts on real estate issues such as loans and insurance availability. Okay, it also impacts the survivability of our communities. And I don't need to have to tell this group what that means in terms of what happened last year. I suggest, please, that we have some sort of a independent investigation to take care of this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And again, I point out that this board is in support of the Fire Safe Council, but we have no authority whatsoever over the personnel. And an investigation, perhaps the grand jury you might want to consider.
My name is Joanne Coughlin, and I've heard what you said, but there are muddy waters here about how well and you are tied into there. I am here to speak about the Fire Safe Council and not about Joanne Drummond. I recently resigned as a member of the Board of Directors. This was because of multiple violations of the Brown Act, mishandling of sexual harassment complaints. One of you have said you have no jurisdiction over the Fire Safe Council, but the county does have a big interest in any efforts to reduce the risk of catastrophic fire in the county, and there are two members of your board that are on the Fire Safe Council Board of Directors. One, Mr. Weston, is a director on the board and a member of the executive committee. Ms. Hall as an alternate representative on the board. And the Board of Supervisors has provided money to the Fire Safe Council. Most importantly, the citizens of the county you represent all benefit greatly from the Fire Safe Council. The Fire Safe Council can apply for grants that the county, state, federal, and fire departments can't. Just in the last 8 months, this has been $1.2 million to reduce fuels in the area. This includes $700,000 alone in the watershed of Scott's reservoirs where Grass Valley, Nevada City, and more get their water. When the Fire Safe Council Board decides to focus on, quote, prevention, that excludes this type of collaborative fuel reduction. Further, the Fire Safe Council was asked by the Biomass Committee to apply for grants for a feasibility study. A $250,000 grant was successfully obtained. The committee has requested that the Fire Safe Council serve as fiscal agent for stewardship agreements to help feed the plant. This is critical to provide a way to help fund reducing fuels on all lands with low impact to air quality. The Fire Safe Council has failed to act on this request after 6 months. The characterization by the chair, Dennis Casella, this morning about the reasons for them not continuing Joanne Drummond's contract are false. Ms. Drummond brought forth issues with how the board was operating, particularly with respect to the Brown Act and human resources. Differences of opinion can be handled appropriately by a professionally run organization, but they were not. The recent decision of the board to emphasize prevention is misguided. What does prevention mean? Generally, the emphasis is on education and fire patrols. Education is important. Fire-wise communities and defensible space are important. But fires roar in from 5 to 10 miles away and can impact water supplies and pick up enough steam so that no community can be prepared enough. The big picture requires reducing fuels across the landscape. The Fire Safe Council has been a lead in helping to secure grants for this purpose. The Fire Safe Council is rapidly devolving into a board with groupthink acting in a manner that is outdated and at times illegal. At the very least, the entire Board of Supervisors need to examine the situation in greater detail and support a change in the board to restore the positive direction that it has been in. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hi, my name is Steve Chandler. I'm recently retired from the Richmond Fire Department, 34 years. I'm the Lake of the Pines Firewise Committee representative to the coalition. I represent almost 4,000 voters. I'm not here about Joanne Drummond right now. I'm here about public safety. And it is you, all board members, that have come across and you do an independent investigation of the actions of this board, because what they've done with the cancellation or not going along with bringing Joanne Drummond back is a public safety issue. Therefore, you do have a right to investigate. You're impelled to investigate. Public safety is not only the safety and welfare of Nevada County, but everybody else. So, Mr. Schofield, you guys are impelled to act upon public safety. So, requesting an independent investigation on public safety and how this affects public safety is within your purview. As a county, the county is better off with Joanne Drummond as a director, and our county's a lot safer yesterday as it is today. So I'm requesting of you to do an independent investigation, keep her on until this investigation is concluded, and this is a public safety issue, therefore you are compelled to act. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Chris Mertens from the Sierra Business Council, and I just want to take a second of your time to talk to you today about two upcoming statewide natural resources and water bonds. The Sierra Business Council is a nonprofit that's based in Truckee that seeks to improve the environment, economy, and natural resources in the Sierra Nevada region. We accomplish our mission in several ways, such as helping local governments create climate and energy plans, helping small businesses start and grow, and statewide advocacy. The Sierra Business Council is coordinating regional support for two upcoming statewide natural resources and water bond measures. The first is Proposition 68, which is on the ballot in June 5th, in just a few weeks, and the Water Supply and Water Quality Act, which will be on the ballot in November. If both measures pass, an unprecedented $492 million will be allocated directly to the Sierra Nevada for wildfire risk reduction, watershed restoration, climate resiliency, water quality, and recreation projects. Language in both bonds sets aside funding specifically for fuel reduction projects. If passed, funding for our region will be allocated through the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, California Tahoe Conservancy, and Wildlife Conservation Board, as well as some local agencies. In addition, Nevada County agencies, nonprofits, and districts could apply for funding through several statewide competitive grant programs. Erica Seward, the co-executive director from the Bear Yuba Land Trust, is with me here, and she's going to talk about some of the projects that similar resources bonds have funded in the past in Nevada County, to give you some context. The combined funding from both bonds for the Sierra is 5.5 times what the region got from Prop 84 and 12 times what the region got from Prop 1 in 2014. Not only is the immediate return on investment more than ever before, but if we're successful, these amounts become the new baseline for future funding to our region. If you're interested in learning more about how you can support these measures, please reach out to myself or Erica. You can find our contact information on the Sierra Business Council website or the Bear Yuba Land Trust website. And thanks a lot for your time today.
Thank you, Chris.
Hello there. My name is Erica Seward. I'm co-executive director of Bear Yuba Land Trust. Our organization has recently undergone some new leadership. My counterpart, Erin Tarr couldn't be here today, but she is also leading us into the future. Our organization is committed to staying true to our roots, protecting important lands, including forests, ranches, and nature preserves, and connecting people to nature with high-quality outdoor experiences and trails. As Chris mentioned, California Prop 68 is a parks, environment, and water bond that will authorize $4 billion to fund state and local parks, environmental protection and restoration projects, water infrastructure projects, and flood protection projects. It is the largest single conservation bond in the state's history. The Sierra Nevada region is the state's primary watershed, for those that don't know that. So wildfires and other consequences of climate change that affect watershed health have a high likelihood of impacting the rest of the state. Past projects that Bear Yuba Land Trust have received funding from bonds include our largest preserve, the 2,700-acre Rice's Crossing, which includes 6 miles of the Yuba River below Bullard's Bar, and will soon have over 7 miles of trail systems open to the public. Prop 84 helped us to implement fuel reduction near homes and native plant restoration along the trails at Woodpecker Wildlife Preserve on Banner Mountain. So future projects that would be possible with this funding from Prop 68 would increase outdoor recreation and conservation. A perfect example of a region in Nevada County which would greatly benefit from this proposition passing is the Independence Trail in South Yuba River Canyon. The Independence Trail is owned by State Parks and BYLT. We own 207 acres interspersed with the state parks land. This was given to us by the late John Olmsted's Foundation Sequoia Challenge. This trail is historic and was the first wheelchair accessible one in the country. It is in desperate need of infrastructure improvements. Prop 68 would also provide funding for conservation of important landscapes such as productive grazing lands, wildlife corridors, and working forests. The dream of completing the Pines to Mines Trail connecting Truckee to Nevada City could also become a reality. So thank you, and we are in support of this Prop 68.
Thank you, Erica.
Hello, my name is Katherine Torrance, and I just want to speak for a moment about the Fire Safe Council issue here. I'm a Nevada County resident, and my husband and I have been looking for a home in Nevada County since last July to purchase a home. And what we found is that the homeowner's insurance, the cost of the homeowner's insurance has become prohibitively expensive after the Sonoma County fires. And if you can get insurance at all as a new homeowner. And our friends and neighbors have had their policies dropped, or they've had to resort to less desirable and minimally regulated insurance policies with no guarantee that they might get reimbursed for a claim after a fire. The organization that has led the way in reducing the risk of fire in Nevada County has been the Fire Safe Council under the leadership of Joanne Drummond. I'm wondering what possible reason is there to terminate Joanne Drummond now as we enter the fire season, endangering the lives and property of Nevada's county citizens. I'm really very concerned about the impact of her termination. I feel that it must be rescinded until there's a complete investigation of the procedures of the Board of Director of the Fire Safe Council. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Catherine.
Hi, I'm Susan Rogers, Vice Chair of the Coalition of Firewise Communities of Nevada County. We're an independent organization that is not affiliated with the Fire Safe Council. I need to correct one statement made by the first speaker today, who said that Ms. Drummond, quote, set up the coalition, unquote. And she did not. We set it up ourselves after realizing that we shared similar issues and could work together to achieve more in fire safety. The coalition members have not yet voted to take a position for the organization on what's happening here, and I just wanted to state that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
My name is Cathy Greenwood. I am part of the Fire Safe community of Lake Bear Round Mountain Neighborhood Association. I'm here also as our Selby Lane Road Association, and I'm representing 26 families who have benefited greatly from what the driving force of Joanne Drummond and all she has accomplished, and what that has meant to our community. We have, she has worked on evacuation routes. She has, what she has accomplished in terms of making us, of creating our fire-safe community is amazing. She has such passion, and she has done things like, we have our annual meeting on a Sunday once a year on her day off, and she comes to our meeting to help create our small community out there of 26 families. And she truly is a driving force. She is incredible. Who else could have a packed house at the Foundry for her annual meeting or her annual get-together or what that we just attended at $75 per ticket, and she packed the house, and it's because of what she has accomplished, what she does, what she means to all of us. So I hope that you will investigate whatever is going on the board, the politics behind that, the obvious serious issues that are going on, so that she does not lose her position. She is so valuable to this community.
Thank you, ma'am. I apologize, I missed your name.
Cathy Greenwood.
Cathy Green. Thank you, Cathy. Okay. I'll just make a final comment. I know it's frustrating that we do not have control over personnel, but I will tell you that the county takes fire prevention very, very seriously. And in fact, I know today, because I'm disappointed I'm missing it, there is a table topic exercise that's being held at Lake of the Pines today. And it's being done with our OES personnel, CAL FIRE, and the fire districts that are involved down there. So there is grave concerns at this level also. So thank you. Thank you for your comments. All right, at this time, at 9:02, we have a presentation regarding the Tahoe Central Sierra Initiative between the Sierra Nevada Conservancy and Tahoe and El Dorado National Forest Services, the Tahoe Basin, and others to develop new partnerships and ways of doing business and game-changing strategies to leverage resources and to increase the pace and scale of forest restoration. Jim Brannon. Jim?
Okay, got it. Thank you. Well, good morning, and thank you, Chairman Schofield and members of the board. It's nice to be back here. It's been a while since I've presented before this board. I think most of you know that the Sierra Nevada Conservancy has a very close working relationship with county government. We have 6 of our 13 voting members at any given time. Our county supervisors, selected from the 6 subregions. Supervisor Weston is the liaison to the Sierra Nevada Conservancy currently. We've been working on these issues for about 25 years, so it's always good to see Supervisor Weston. So we really wanted to come here today, kind of let you know what's going on in your backyard, make sure that we're making you aware of an effort that we're co-leading with our counterparts in the Tahoe Basin and with a number of key partners. And in the audience today, as part of the partnership, are Jeff Brown, who is the manager at the Seychan Research Station, University of California, system up north of Truckee, and Dave Fournier from the Tahoe National Forest, who are key partners in this effort. So what I want to do is kind of walk through what this is, what we're up to, why we're doing it, and maybe end with an opportunity to talk a little bit about what the partnership with the Nevada County might look like. So this is not particular news probably to any of you, but what's been happening in the Sierra Nevada region for this decade is pretty dramatic and pretty devastating. And we've seen a steady increase of large, severe wildfire. We set the record in the west slope of the Sierra Nevada this decade for acres burned, with 2 fire seasons to go. More important than that is, as you can see in the picture on the right, we have dramatically increased the amount of acreage that's burning at high severity. Fire is not playing the historic role that it did once upon a time in helping clear out the forest and having significant ecological benefits. So as we have tried to grapple with how as a regional organization do we deal with that, 3 years ago we created the Sierra Nevada Watershed Improvement Program, a primary partner being in that the U.S. Forest Service Region 5, to really talk about how do we take this problem on at scale. We thought it was important that we be able to articulate more clearly what the what the issues were, what the challenges were, what the opportunities were, and an approach that organized itself under a kind of a common banner, if you will. So that what we call the WIP, the Sierra Nevada Watershed Improvement Program, was launched. I think we've made substantial progress. There's been reference to the WIP in numerous reports now, Little Hoover Commission report, Ledge Analyst report, the Forest Carbon Plan that's about to be released, that this is really a model for how we restore landscapes to ecological health and resilience. But we also felt like we were not quite making the progress we needed. I may have hit that a little too soon. Let me back up. So we formed something called the Tahoe Central Sierra Initiative, and I'll talk about the landscape in a moment. We've got a quick little video that kind of sums it up better than I could. It was developed last year before the annual Tahoe Summit. I want to play that and then hit a few key points in terms of what that is. But it really was our feeling that a region that is a quarter of the state of California, our region, there's a lot of differences. We had a southern half of our region that basically experienced unprecedented tree mortality. So in order to really kind of figure out how we do business differently, which I think is the conclusion we'd come to, we figured we needed to pick a landscape where we had strong partnerships, we had activities in place. Really was next in the wave of tree mortality. As tree mortality was going south to north, this particular area was kind of on target. We already had the King Fire, so we can't say we were trying to get ahead of the major fires, but really felt like it was the right place, as you'll hear in the video, the right place and the right time to say, let's figure out how to do things differently. Let's how to figure out how to get to scale rather than just talking about pace and scale. So I'm going to play this, and I'll hit on a few key points. Hopefully we're going to play this. Perhaps I'm not going to play this. Looks like it didn't. There's a video indent, but I'm not going to play it. So I'll go from there. So the partnership we decided to create in reaching out to folks was really to look at who is working on the landscape kind of at scale, right? There's dozens of partners working to try to restore our forests and communities to a greater sense of resilience. But there really were a handful of parties that were thinking more about how do we do this across the larger landscape. So that's the list of partners. We have actually 3 different units of the United States Forest Service. We have the Tahoe, the El Dorado, and the Tahoe Basin units of the Forest Service involved. We have a number of nonprofit organizations. We have our, as I mentioned earlier, our Tahoe Conservancy partners. And what's not on there, and we're in the process of getting them officially signed on, is CAL FIRE, who are a key partner in this effort. So we really felt like this is where we can kind of use this landscape to not only increase the pace and scale of restoration, but test new ways of doing business. Some of that is happening within various projects. Some of it is what we're exploring now. So this is the landscape we ultimately settled on. It's basically bounded on by the Yuba River watershed on the north and by the South Fork American on the south. Goes up, includes the Tahoe Basin, and the western boundary is basically our Sierra Nevada Conservancy boundary. So again, a very strong federal presence, obviously some private land ownership throughout, but really key partnership with the Forest Service and thinking about, okay, what do we do across this part of the state? Those are the existing efforts that the partners I mentioned earlier are involved in. As you can see, the Western Nevada County Defensible Space Project is on the map as a major project. We just provided some funding to that. There's a lot of activity going on here. The color on the map does not, however, suggest that the work's being done at that scale. Those are project areas that have been identified. The projects are happening much more piecemeal, but there's a notion there that at least folks are thinking more at scale. So that's the area that we really focused on. There's a lot of individual projects that are happening there, as I mentioned. I mentioned the Western Nevada fuel break, but we've got an interesting project in the French Meadows area, which is in the Middle Fork of the American River, where a partnership of the Nature Conservancy, Placer County Water, the Forest Service, American River Conservancy, ourselves have come together and really talked about, again, let's try to not let the color on the map control what we do. Let's do it across the landscape. And so, interestingly there, the Nature Conservancy is actually coordinating the environmental process on behalf of the Forest Service. Forest Service is still the decision maker, but is testing one of those new ways to do business. The Caples Ecological Restoration Project, which is a prescribed fire project, and the South Fork American El Dorado Irrigation District was an applicant to us to get funding to do the environmental work. So again, a kind of a unique partnership to get to a fairly large scale prescribed fire there. And Sage-End Experimental is an example of where we can bring lots of data, lots of research that's been in place together to figure out how do we manage the forest and how do we really understand the consequences and the impacts going forward, because we've got great ability to continue to measure success. And Jeff and his group have done a great job of exploring different ways to treat forests to bring them to a more resilient state. So those are the efforts that are underway. What we're trying to do at the broader level is assist all of those efforts, create new efforts, and really kind of raise all boats, as it were. So we have been looking not in any way to try to provide direction or oversight of the efforts, but to build off of them. So we came together, we applied to CAL FIRE for what's now called Climate Change Investment. It's the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Funds for this landscape. Last year, we received a $5 million grant that does for projects throughout the landscape. We're in the process of applying again at a larger amount this year. CAL FIRE's got significantly more money. So that's kind of the role we see that this group can play, is really bring funding and explore new ways of doing business, new opportunities, because what we've been doing simply isn't working. And so we wanted to make sure you understood that what this effort was all about. We're continuing kind of each day to explore new partnerships, new ways of doing things. Where are those opportunities, not only to treat this landscape and hopefully get it to a resilient state, but export the lessons learned here to other places in the state. It also happens to be, interestingly and not coincidentally, situated in watersheds that feed the greater Sacramento area, where a lot of our decision makers live and work part-time. So it's a great connection for the people that are making decisions about funding and other policy decisions as we look at this. So again, this is the effort. We've really focused on three things: on funding to do the restoration work, and we're seeing significant progress there. I think in a macro sense, the state of California is investing. Congress and the President just fixed, going forward, the fire borrowing issue with Forest Service, which is going to create more funds for fuels treatment and for forest health projects. And so we're seeing some state projects. You heard Chris and Erica talk about the 2 bond measures, which could bring significant funds into the region for this kind of work. We're trying to tackle policy issues, some of the impediments we've seen. We've built up lots of policies that restrict what we do and built on the fact that action may be the threat to the landscape. I think we've gotten to the place where we realize it's inaction that is the threat. So how do we improve processes and policies to be able to do more work? And we've made significant progress on the issue of prescribed fire in terms of there's a number of pieces of legislation working through, and really trying to get to a place of how do we get work done on the ground in a more effective manner. The last piece is infrastructure. And when we started this whole effort under WIP, infrastructure to us meant facilities that could utilize biomass and wood. And that's still the case. We still have a shortage of those. But now we realize the infrastructure is bigger than that. It's the equipment to do the work. It's the people to do the work in the field. As we ramp up, and as funding and attention begins to get focused our way, we're going to struggle with having the capacity to get the work done. So we're really beginning to focus as well on workforce development, trying to create those incentives for investment. You in Nevada County have been working for years on the idea of having some biomass utilization facility here in the county. There's communities up and down the Sierra that have been working on that. We've had very little success. So once again, we've got to kind of regroup and figure out how can we maybe use this place-based effort to establish some place-based opportunities as the broader policy begins to be recognized that you definitely need this. The alternative to all of this, and this is something I think most of you know, is the fuel that's out in the forest, that we have way too much of it, it's going to burn. It's just a matter of whether we burn it in a manner that under current conditions, whether a manner we can control and manage, like prescribed fire, whether we can put it in a facility that can create energy, or whether we can get out there and actually do the kind of restoration work that will mean less overall fire, but certainly less severe fire. And that's really what our focus is in this area. This is both increasing pace and scale and hitting all those three key pillars that I mentioned, but also let's see if we can figure out new ways of doing it. Let's create new partnerships. Let's do new governance. Let's look at different ways of doing it. So that's what it's all about. This was mostly to make you aware of what we're doing. We'd love to explore how the county might be willing to be an active participant in this. But our purpose today was basically say, in case you hear about this is what it is. We don't want you to be surprised by that. So with that, I'll stop. If there's time for questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
Thank you, Jim. Richard?
Thank you, Chair Schofield. Mr. Branham, thank you for the presentation. Very informative and very heartening also for those of us who live in the forest. With regard to involvement by Nevada County or by the cities and other agencies within the Central Sierra Initiative area, do you have any ideas as to what we can be doing with you or with other partners?
Sure. I think part of there's a couple of things. It would be great for counties generally, but any county specifically, to make sure you're an active participant in some of these policy discussions that are occurring. We work very closely with RC, the Regional Council, which is not their name anymore, but the Rural Counties Association. And so really having a strong county voice at the table from a standpoint of why it matters to you on these policy issues we're dealing with, whether it be prescribed fire or the funding or the full range of improving processes. So I think there's always an opportunity for the counties to be a voice in that front. More specifically here, there are opportunities for the county to certainly take on some of the CEQA responsibilities. As you probably know, we have expended a fair amount of our funds on projects on federal land. Once the state money is made available for that purpose, whether NEPA has been done or not, we have to go through a CEQA process. And it's extra time, it's extra money, it's extra resource. We're trying to explore with the Forest Service ways to get out in front of that. Maybe we can do more joint NEPA CEQA. But in the meantime, there will be opportunities. I think the county's played that role in the past for the county to be taking on perhaps the CEQA responsibility at the local level. That's certainly one way. I know you've just dealt with a controversial issue here, but certainly the local groups that you all are connected to are critical implementers in this. Fire safe councils, resource conservation district, watersheds group, land trust, they're key implementers in this. So again, being aware of the importance of that kind of infrastructure, if you will, and being as supportive as you can be of that is also extremely helpful. Ultimately, it's going to come down to people being able to take the funds and get work done on the ground. So I think there's probably a number of ways that we could certainly look at working with Nevada County.
So at the very least, we need to deepen our conversation with the Sierra Nevada Conservancy and pursue those advocacies, those projects that might have some synergistic benefit across what you're doing and what might be a benefit directly to Nevada County.
Yeah.
One final question with regard to Nevada. As you know, the Central Truckee watershed, Lake Tahoe, feeds into Nevada. It's an important water supply for the cities of Reno and Sparks and for Washoe County. Are you talking with them also, trying to bring them into the process of investing in work within this area?
Yes, we're not as involved in that as, for example, the Tahoe Conservancy has been, because, as you know, the Tahoe Basin is a bi-state piece of geography and a lot of bi-state efforts going on there. But there definitely has been interest from the folks in Nevada. They understand that the Sierra is a big source of their water, particularly in northern Nevada. So there's been some investment on the Truckee, which is obviously the most direct opportunity, but I think there's opportunities for us to grow this. The video that you didn't see was actually prepared for last year's Tahoe Summit, and we thought it important to be able to tell this story while we had key decision makers from Nevada and California there together, and that was a part of our effort at the time. So yeah, I think there's additional opportunity. But I would also say, let's not forget that there's a whole bunch of folks in California downstream of us who get tremendous benefit from this region, who really aren't paying attention and aren't investing and aren't the participants that they could be. So we're focused in that direction as well. It's important to get Nevada on board, but certainly we've got lots of folks in California who don't seem to remember where their water comes from. So.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Chair.
And from a county perspective, I'm sorry I didn't introduce Chris Dallas, who is our area representative. He's your point of contact here for Nevada County. So as we explore those, he works on all the projects. There'll be opportunities to work with Chris, certainly.
I apologize. Hank, you represent us. Do you have any comments?
Well, I think the main thing was when the Tahoe Central Sierra Initiative was, I guess, daylighted, and there was a lot of input to it, and I think what Jim says is correct. It was a great roadmap. Now we got to figure out how to get the funding and the infrastructure in place to pull it off. You know, there's still always the issue of, you know, why aren't we cutting or harvesting more trees, and then it requiring a stronger cleanup on the land when they do that. You know, the two should be tied together. And that, I mean, I know you've heard it on and on again, but I think, you know, even though when it says actions needed, increased funding, the policy constraints, I think, at least in the national forest, we need to try and blend that as a way to harvest, clean, prescribed fire, which I support immensely, and trying to get that cleaned up, because otherwise we're going to have nothing but as you said, we have 2 more years in this century, and I mean in this decade, and it could be another moonscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I was in the Southern Sierra in some meetings last week, and what I would say up here is at least we still have relatively close infrastructure in terms of a mill in Lincoln, and this part of the state's got more infrastructure. Down there, when you get south of Sonora, there is nothing, and now they've got literally tens of millions of dead trees standing, which are not going to be really usable as a product. Where the future, you know, opportunity comes from, but is a question. But we've tried to do, I think the Forest Service has worked really hard to try to figure out how you can do sustainable management and get some of that other work done, but when you have limited outlets for the material, it's really difficult. So that's a key component, is this figuring out. And I think we feel like it's really time for us now to walk the walk, and we think we've got a great opportunity to do it here. So I don't know if Jeff and Dave are here. I don't know if they wanted to add anything to that. I know we didn't exactly start at 9:02, but
That's all right.
Yeah. Want to add anything?
Heidi?
What did you?
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
come on up, sure. It should be on.
It's on.
It's on.
I think one thing that's really clear, and it's becoming more and more evident, is that, you know, we've got a huge problem. And I like to view problems as a challenge, because I think this one is one that we can absolutely solve. We just need to get the right people together to make the decision to move forward. And I think the TCSI effort that Sierra Nevada Conservancy has been spearheading and driving hard is brilliant, because none of us have the resources to do what it's going to take to get this to change. And by bringing in these different thinkings and different entities is the only way we're going to be able to actually get to the scale that we're going to need to be working in to actually start shifting the clock and changing the direction that the forest trajectory happens to be on into a route that I think will benefit all of us. And I'd also like to say that, you know, your county, Nevada County, is really good, because a lot of the entities that operate within your area are bigger thinkers. And I think it's a tribute to your county that you have a lot of people that are now thinking in terms of working more broadly to try to solve the problems that, A, directly affect Nevada County, but also, you know, the entire rest of the Sierra Nevada. So, thank you.
For the record, would you identify yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm Jeff Brown. I'm the director of the UC Berkeley Central Sierra Field Research Stations, and I'm resident at Safety Creek Field Station, which is located in Nevada County.
Thank you, Jeff. Heidi?
Thank you for the presentation, Jim, and I'm sorry we missed the video. It's always good to see the stuff on the ground, but this is so critical. The other hat I wear is I work on the California Water Action Plan, and I know that for some of us, we've been fighting for years to get attention up here in the north on our forest, our fire, and water issues. So I like this looking at your brochure that you've attached, this your connection with fire to healthy forests and climate change and where the water from this state comes from, which is here, I think has been critical to get people's attention up here, to see that we need to be putting more resources in fire issues. So I just want to commend you for doing this. This looks like great work. To me, it's overwhelming still. The work we have to do the amount is overwhelming. But in my experience, there's a relentlessness required to keep the attention on this area to keep moving. So I'm with Richard on, whatever we can do to help support this work. I'm game to do. So thank you again.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, it is a bit daunting, but what's the alternative, right? I mean, we just need to keep trying to chip away at it and eventually get to a place where we're at scale, hopefully.
Well, I think if anybody wants to see what can be done is to go to Sage Hen Creek and see all of the options you have put in place and what works and what doesn't. And I think, that's a model, but we have to change the thought process to say that's what it should look like. That's how we should approach it. And, I mean, there's been lots of tours and lots of people have seen it, but we need more to see it. I mean, it is good on the ground.
Right. Absolutely. And I guess maybe I'd say, as daunting as it is, the good news is we know what to do. We know what the tools are, right? It's not a mystery. And we've got more agreement now, I think, in this region on the need to use those tools more aggressively. We've got a lot of environmental groups that, quite frankly, a decade ago were still fighting the fight, who have really come to the table and said, things like the rimfire and kingfire aren't working for us. We're losing habitat. We're putting sediment into our rivers and so on. So there's both an understanding of the tool, what we need to do and how we can do it, and really a lot of agreement. Not everybody. We're never going to have total agreement, but I think there's a tremendous opportunity to take this on, and as big a task as it is. And that's, for me, I've been in this job now 13 years. It's been a significant shift, and I really believe we're at that kind of moment in time. We're either going to deliver or we're going to, explain to our grandkids why this happened on our watch. So it's really time to act. So, thank you.
Dan?
Yeah, there's been a lot of frustration over the years because, and I like Hank's word blend and partnerships now, because it seemed like the national forests were all working in their own little silos and competing for money. But I think partnerships now has blurred those lines. And we look at cap and trade, we look at the Farm Bill, we look at the funding becoming available. There's more of a global look as far as our watershed and our needs to cooperate from national forest to national forest. And I think what the work you're doing is eliminating a lot of those, this is mine, you fight for your own. And so for us, RCRC has been very frustrated in discussions over the years, but I think they're seeing change now, which is necessary in order for us to look at our watershed and look at our forest as a corporate view rather than as an individual view. So, yeah, I applaud you for what you're doing. And have you seen an increase in cap and trade funds made available?
Yes. Yeah, both the total amount available and the amount, and we're fairly parochial, so we keep track of what's being spent in the Sierra Nevada, and I think we've had good success in our region in terms of that funding. CAL FIRE at $25 million a couple of years ago. In the current budget year, they have about $210 million of cap and trade to spend. The governor's budget currently before the legislature has $160 million. So there is a significant increase of investment in cap and trade dollars for this kind of work, and that's a very positive sign for sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, the fires that we've been experiencing finally raised the awareness down in Sacramento.
Yes, last year's fire season seemed to get people's attention in a way that Rim and King and Butte and Rough fires didn't. So,
thank you.
Okay, are there any public comments or questions? Okay. Jim, thank you for a great presentation. Jeff, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next agenda item is the consent calendar. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. Board of Supervisors will act upon them at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Board? None. Staff? Public? Okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Supervisor Anderson, seconded Supervisor Miller. Madam Clerk?
District 4?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes. Okay. And the audience disperses. Some of them are coming forward, okay. So our next item is the Acting Behavioral Health Phoebe Bell. This is a resolution proclaiming 2018 as Mental Health Month in Nevada County. Phoebe?
Hi, thanks. Good morning, Chair Schofield and members of the board. I'm Phoebe Bell, Interim Director of Behavioral Health, and I've brought with me today Nancy Ramsey, who's the Chair of the Mental Health Advisory Board, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about Mental Health Awareness Month and what the Mental Health Advisory Board's been up to.
Good morning. I'm just going to say a few words here. Our mental health impacts every aspect of our lives. People always say mental health and we think of something's wrong, but we all have mental health. It's just where are we on the continuum, just like we all have physical health. The board has currently 8 members, plus 2 representatives from the Board of Supervisors, Heidi Hall and Richard Anderson, and we both appreciate your input and support. The board represents community members and stakeholders and speak on their behalf, and sometimes they come to the board meeting and speak on their own behalf. The bylaws have been updated, reviewed by County Council, and will soon be coming to you for final approval. The bylaws now reflect the soon-to-be implemented drug Medi-Cal organized delivery system in Nevada County. And so we will become the Mental Health and Substance Use Advisory Board, and it raises our membership to 13. So we will include more people with lived experience on the board, or people in their families that have lived experience on substance use. The board currently has 14 goals, which now include oversight on substance use and co-occurring disorders, as well as the mental health services. Members of the board are very active in other committees in the community, such as the Mental Health Forensic Task Force, the Mental Health Services Act, and the Behavioral Health Quality Improvement Board.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the work we're doing at the Behavioral Health Department. First, as just a general reminder of who our primary target audience is, we essentially serve people on Medi-Cal or people who are indigent and who also suffer from serious mental illness. That's our primary population that we intend to serve, though with some exceptions to that. Our crisis services are available to everyone regardless of insurance status or diagnosis. And a lot of our prevention work, especially that's funded by the Mental Health Services Act, is available to a broader section of the community. And really our goal throughout the Behavioral Health Department is to help people achieve recovery and achieve the high quality of life they deserve to live. So we have 4 primary service areas that we focus on. And throughout those 4 service areas, a real theme of our work is our commitment to research-proven, evidence-based practices. So our staff is highly trained in sort of top-line therapeutic intervention approaches like motivational interviewing and cognitive behavioral therapy and trauma-informed care and a variety of disciplines like that, which we really think ensure that we provide quality services to the community. In the adult services arena, we provide psychiatry and med support as well as outpatient therapy services and case management. Something that people often aren't as aware of is the role we play in supportive housing for the community. Directly and indirectly through the Behavioral Health Department, we support about 160 people in their housing, including providing sort of the daily care and check-in and support people need to be able to sustain housing, which we think is really important. We're particularly proud of our Assertive Community Treatment Program, which is also known as a full-service partnership, and we do that work primarily through Turning Point, and really that's a 24/7 full support program to allow people to maintain a high quality of life in the community. In the children's services arena, we have the same array of therapy and psychiatric support. In addition, we have what's called wraparound programming, which is, again, a higher intensity level of service where we'll bring a team of therapists and parent support folks into a child's family and home and community environments and really help give the whole family unit the skills to be successful in allowing that child to thrive. We also work really closely with our schools and are really proud of that work. We have connections to the school districts throughout the county and have staff co-located in a number of school settings, thereby kind of increasing the access to care for kids and making it as accessible as possible to get the support they need. Substance use disorder services is an area you will be hearing a lot more about in upcoming weeks. We have been spending a lot of this last year on laying the groundwork to greatly expand what we're able to offer in the substance use arena. You actually had before you today a resolution approving a grant that we recently received to support both the renovations of Boast House, but also to expand access to treatment care. And we're really excited about the work we're doing in this arena. We know substance use is a significant issue in the community, and to be able to kind of grow the options available to people is going to be just an exciting year for us ahead. Crisis services is probably the area that gets the most public attention in that it's where we interface a lot with the community at large. We have staff in place at Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital 24 hours a day to be able to do crisis assessments, and we respond 24 hours a day to Tahoe Forest Hospital as needed for assessments. Sometimes we hospitalize people when needed, but we've put a lot of work over the last few years into improving the quality of our crisis spectrum of services to avoid hospitalization when possible and to make that experience as positive as possible. One of the things we're most proud about is the level of embedded peer support we have in our crisis system, which essentially means we have people with lived experience who are responding at the hospital and at the CSU and can really help somebody that's going through a crisis understand what's coming, what to expect, and who can relate to how that person's feeling, which provides a lot of comfort to somebody who's in a really difficult place. And then lastly, under crisis services, an important piece that the Behavioral Health Department provides is community crisis response. We have a number of staff who are specially trained in crisis intervention, and when there's a crisis of some kind, like for example, the Oroville Dam evacuation and 1,000 people at the shelter, our Behavioral Health Department responds and is able to provide behavioral health services on the spot. Or more recently, when we have a crisis in the community, like the tragic loss of lives at Nevada Union High School, our team goes out and responds and supports family and friends and whatnot. So we just wanted to call out a couple of highlights from this past year, and these are areas where we've really worked in partnership with the Mental Health Advisory Board and other community stakeholders like NAMI and others to say, what are the real gaps and needs in our services? What are the areas that we want to improve what we're able to offer to the community, and working together to help make that happen. So again, crisis services came up often for people really wanting to improve that experience. So we, amongst other things, really invested in the Crisis Stabilization Unit, which hopefully you've all had a chance to see before, but really is an incredible addition to our crisis care services. It's a really peaceful, lovely environment where people can hopefully de-escalate and get out of crisis and avoid being hospitalized, or if they do end up needing to be hospitalized, have a much more positive experience while they're waiting placement. Something that was really of high importance to the community at large is what's called crisis intervention training for law enforcement. This is where law enforcement gets specific training in how to de-escalate a mental health crisis in the field and avoid the level of confrontation and conflict that can sometimes arise out of those interactions. We, together with leadership from the community and the Mental Health Board and obvious partnership from law enforcement partners, were able to train over 75 law enforcement officers in CIT, which everybody's really excited about and something we want to continue. You've heard a little bit about the drug and alcohol services expansion already, and again, more to come on that front. Another focus for the group really has been around improving services in Truckee. There's particular challenges with a small population base, and how do we bring sort of the more intensive services to the Truckee area. And I'm particularly proud of the work that's been done up there in the last couple of years to really deepen what we're able to offer. We've added case management services and nursing support and homeless outreach services, which is just really improving the continuum of care in the Truckee area. And then lastly, we continue to really focus on how do we support homeless people who have mental illness, and how do we do specific outreach and engagement and try and identify people that need that higher level of care. One last highlight we wanted to call out in honor of Stepping Up Day of Action, which is this month in May, is the Stepping Up Initiative. And this is a national effort to really reduce the number of people with mental illness in our jails. So locally, we have a really strong group that's come together involving law enforcement, probation, DA, public defender, behavioral health, and kind of all the logical partners to start working on this issue and figure out what we can do locally to really reduce how many people end up in jail really because of their mental illness. We have forensic outreach worker, we've expanded mental health court, again, law enforcement training, and then we have some other ideas that we are looking for grant opportunities to be able to expand services in this arena. So with that, I'll turn it back to Nancy.
Phoebe and I come to you today to respectfully request that the board declare May Mental Health Awareness Month.
No details?
No details. Just could you declare it?
Heidi, you're our representative. Would you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. Gosh, this is a really great presentation. I hope the board doesn't mind that you went into depth into what you all doing, but it's such good work, and it's just right cutting edge with everything that's happening in our community with the homelessness as well. And I'm proud to be on that board with you all, and excited to see the movement forward, and glad in light of other things we're seeing that you've got bylaws that are moving forward and getting our ducks in order, as that's important as well. So I'm very happy to see the work that you've been doing, and I absolutely support the idea of making this mental health month.
Comments? Dan?
Yeah, one question. If someone's diagnosed with severe mental illness and law enforcement has them in custody, what's the procedure?
Well, it definitely depends on the situation, but in the ideal world, we have, so if the person ends up in jail, for example, we have a forensic outreach worker that's going to go and connect with them and link them into care, so that if they're released, we're immediately getting them set up with the care that they need. If it's something where it's a mental health crisis, really, and there's not criminal activity or negligible criminal activity, maybe they're a good candidate to come to the CSU and be further assessed and get linked into care that way. So it depends a little on the situation, but those are the types of connections we're working on deepening at this point.
So if they're criminal activity and they're diagnosed and they're taken to jail, so there's an intervention there at the jail, but the person would still remain in custody, or what would happen then, Phoebe?
Again, it would depend on what the criminal activity was and how serious the situation was. If it's a felony level situation, they're going to probably stay in jail. But we also have the mental health court program at that point, where we can divert somebody out of the regular criminal proceedings and start to get them engaged in mental health care as sort of their form of working through that process.
Okay. I believe the jail also has a contract to provide mental health services in the jails as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. CFMG is the provider in the jail system, and one of our goals is to really link that incarcerated care to their community-based care post-release.
Yeah, thank you.
Richard?
Thank you, thank you, Chair Schofield. I just want to say thank you to the members of the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Advisory Board, and to the staffers who are engaged on it, and to Supervisor Hall especially. I mean, it's important work. It's work that truly affects the lives of individuals who need assistance, and it's incredibly complex, and that you're engaged in it and engaged in it professionally and with passion, I think it's incredible. So thank you all for what you're doing.
Hank? Great report, and I just know how hard you work at it, and whatever tools we can give you, we'll try and give you. always said that it would always end as mental health and mental health issues and mental health treatment is going to fall on the counties. It's no longer at the state. So we certainly have a robust program, and I think you do a great job, and we just have to, we just know it is going to be an ongoing challenge for us to make.
Other comments from the public? Of course.
We don't go away.
And you
Good
shouldn't.
morning. My name is Lael Walls. I'm president of NAMI Nevada County, the local chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We believe that addressing the needs of everyone's mental health is essential. However, we in NAMI focus on those with serious mental health conditions such as schizophrenia, bipolar illness, severe depression, conditions that affect 5% of the population but have a disproportionate representation in the criminal justice system. As you may know, NAMI first appeared before all of you in 1999 on this very issue. The good news is that the county responded with the creation of the Forensic Task Force on Mental Illness. And here we are 19 years later. The task force has been meeting all these years, making progress. The jail and county behavioral health now communicate. They didn't back then. We have a mental health court as referenced. Judges, probation, the public defender's office, and the office of the district attorney all strive to reduce the impact of mental illness on the criminal justice system. I specifically want to thank the probation department, Mr. Otola is here, and its efforts with the Stepping Up initiative, which you approved supporting several months ago. It's essential that we gather the necessary data to know who in the jail has a mental illness so we can track progress and the effectiveness of our efforts. We need to be more targeted. One is typically not put in jail for having a heart condition that gets out of control. However, having a brain condition, which is what serious mental illnesses are, can also get out of control due to no fault of the person involved. 25 years ago, my husband had a manic episode due to problems with his prescribed medications. He ended up spending 5 days in LA County jail as a result, we weren't here yet, rather than a hospital. And unfortunately, this can still happen today. We in NAMI understand the stigma that can be a problem, but it's the prejudice and discrimination that we experience that truly needs to stop. This is an issue that government alone cannot change, even though you've tried diligently. All of us in our wonderful community need to be involved, including the medical sector, business, media, education, religious and spiritual communities. We in NAMI welcome the opportunity to partner with anyone to help make this difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. Anyone else? Okay, well, I think it's very fitting. I think when we look at mental illness, we think of specific issues, but I think if we really look at it, almost everybody is impacted in one way or another through mental health issues. And having been on the Mental Health Advisory Board at one point, I can say it's probably one of the most educational bodies to be involved with as far as what the county does. And I commend you and the other organizations and the other citizens that sit on that board for the work that you do. Phoebe, nice job. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
Yep, I'll move that we adopt the resolution proclaiming May 2018 as Mental Health Month in Nevada County.
Second.
Motion Supervisor Hall, seconded Supervisor Miller. Madam Clerk?
District 4?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, you guys. All right, our next agenda item is our Director of Public Works, Tricia Tillotson. This is an ordinance adding subsection 58 of section G-4, 3.A.5 of Article 3.A of Chapter 4 of the Nevada County General Code pertaining to speed limits on Rough and Ready Highway between Rex Reservoir Road and Valley Drive, and adding subsection 23 of section D-4, 3.A.7 of Article 3.A of Chapter 4 of the Nevada County General Code pertaining to speed limits on Rough and Ready Highway between Valley Drive and State Route 20. This is in District 4. Tricia?
Good morning, Chair and Supervisors. In April of this year, the Department of Public Works conducted 2 speed zone surveys on Rough and Ready Highway. It's between Rex Reservoir Road and State Route 20. As a result of those studies, which included, so between Rex Reservoir and Valley Drive, the 85th percentile speed was 37 miles an hour. And then between Valley Drive and State Route 20, it was 47 miles per hour. So in conformance with the California Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, where we have to set the speed limit to the nearest 5-mile-an-hour increment, we're recommending a speed limit of 30 miles an hour between Rex Reservoir Road and Valley Drive, and 45 miles an hour between Valley Drive and State Route 20. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those, and Joshua Peck is here as well.
Just a correction, it's 35 between, not 30.
Correct, 35 miles an hour between Rex Reservoir and Valley Drive.
District 4, we adhere to the rules,
Oh,
so pass the
I
rules.
know you do. You're incredible, Hank. Any other comments? Public comment? Okay, I'd entertain a motion. Would
So
you like-
moved.
Motion, Supervisor Weston, second Supervisor Anderson. Madam Clerk?
District 4?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 3? District 5?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Julie, we did such a good job that we were only off by 3 minutes. You guys need a 3-minute break?
Can I get a cup of coffee?
Yes.
This audience is overwhelming.
You
so
got 3 minutes. Yeah.
Right.
Julie? All right. All right, our next scheduled item here is Amy Arani, Environmental Health Director. This is a public hearing to consider a resolution approving the adoption and implementation of the County of Nevada Local Area Management Plan, the LAMP, and on-site wastewater treatment system policy as approved and adopted by the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board on April 7, 2017, and to introduce, waive further reading, and adopt an ordinance amending Section L-6 1.1/1.22 of the Nevada County Land Use and Development Code. Amy.
Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Chair and Supervisors. The item before you for your review and decision is, as Chair Schofield indicated, the Local Area Management Plan, or LAMP, which includes the State of California on-site wastewater treatment system policy. So to give you a brief overview, in the state of California, the authority to regulate on-site wastewater treatment systems lies with the State Water Resources Control Board. We have a jurisdictional control board. We report to the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. That is our jurisdictional. So what the state Regional Water Quality Control Board then designates local authority to counties throughout the state of California for oversight of on-site wastewater treatment systems. So I want to give you a brief history. AB 885 has been around a long time. Initially, it was introduced to the California Assembly in 1999. It was actually approved then in September of 2000 to then tell the State Water Resources Control Board to come up with an on-site wastewater treatment system policy that would be required for all counties throughout the state of California to follow and or implement. So in June, since the year 2000, all the way until June of 2012, the state did come up with an on-site wastewater treatment system policy that they codified and now have put into play. So it became effective in May 2013 and created the first essentially standardized program for all wastewater treatment systems in the state of California. Now, what the state did when they were looking at creating an on-site wastewater treatment system policy is they decided that California is so geographically challenged, they broke it out into tiers for compliance. There are some counties that defer to the state for overall management. Here, we opted for Tier 2, and I just want to give you a brief history of the tiers, okay, that they broke down for the policy. So essentially, when you look at the 5 tiers, taking in the geographical history, Tier 2, or Tier 0, excuse me, are all on-site wastewater systems that are functioning properly. And they do not meet any failed conditions. They do not have any issues. Should they have any issues, then they would have to meet either Tier 2, 3, or 4 for repair. Tier 1 goes into play for any county or jurisdiction that does not adopt their own LAMP, Local Area Management Plan. So the state then has jurisdiction over these particular systems that are considered low risk. What we did here in Nevada County is we wanted to retain local oversight of our regulatory authority over permitting, installation, and regulation of septic systems or on-site wastewater treatment systems. So we opted for Tier 2. What Tier 2 required of us is that we had to come up with a local area management plan, which essentially took into account our existing regulations and then incorporated the state OTS policy, or on-site wastewater treatment system policy. In our LAMP, we also have a Tier 3 requirement. And what that means is that according to Section 303D of the Clean Water Act, the state has deemed one body of water as impaired, and by impaired I mean for pathogen and nitrogen loading, so that what has to happen around this particular area is that any systems that fail or new that go in, we have to ensure that there's no situation that would cause any impact to the impaired body of water from the disposal field. So what is the LAMP? I often get this question. It's a comprehensive manual, essentially. It takes our complete existing sewage disposal regulations that we have right now, are still within this manual. But what it does is it incorporates the additions of the state on-site wastewater treatment system policy. So what we've had to do then is update our existing ordinance to meet the requirements of what the state has asked us to do to stay under Tier 2 jurisdiction. Okay, so we put those requirements in. So essentially, if you look here, I've stated that the manual addresses these specific items so we can stay in a Tier 2 status. We have local agency responsibilities and duties. We have our own local on-site wastewater treatment system policy where we permit, regulate, and oversee. And then we also have an advanced management program for that one area in the county, Wolf Creek, that is deemed an impaired body of water. So what does this mean? We have, Environmental Health Department has some pretty detailed reports that are due to our Central Valley Board annually every February 1st. We need to report to them the number of complaints that we receive on systems. We need to report the annual permits of all septic pumper trucks and where they take their waste when they service the site. We need to give them a description of every existing on-site wastewater treatment system within the county of Nevada. And then we have to report on water quality monitoring. And we will coordinate with the existing, there's GeoTracker and the California Environmental Data Exchange Network, where we will pull state data from state monitoring wells to incorporate in our report. It's not something that we are inventing. We're just pulling that data to assist our report. Now, any variance, say for example, we have a site that is very complicated and they have to put in an advanced system. If there's any variance granted, we would definitely talk to our Central Valley Board to say we are granting a variance in this nature and make sure that they are aware of it and essentially give them notification of why we're granting it. Every 5th year, our responsibility is to report about a maintenance and monitoring program that we have. So every system that is not a standard system, and I'll get to that quickly, not a standard system will have a maintenance and monitoring program. Essentially, a disposal or dispersal system that operates on a pump that has an alarm, to simplify it a little bit, requires maintenance and monitoring. The pump has to be monitored and or maintained annually to make sure that the alarm goes off should there ever be a problem. So I wanted to give you a little example of some FAQs that after, should the board accept and approve the LAMP, we're going to implement some outreach to local property owners. So a couple of questions that have come up: is there a cost to implement this? Well, if you look at surrounding counties, most of our peers or our colleagues around us have instituted a cost for this maintenance and monitoring. The average cost ranges from $100 to $500 a year, and that is just for the permit to have the maintenance and monitoring. In looking at this, we have 942 active non-standard septic systems in Nevada County. That goes all the way into the Eastern County. It covers everybody. What I had, in looking at what we do need to do, in all fairness, the property owner needs to call out a company, and that service usually costs between $400 and $600, could be less, to do the maintenance. We're looking at an initial fee of a half-an-hour charge, which equates to $88 a year for this permit for every residential property owner. Not to be too intrusive and extensive and burdensome in the cost, but still assessing a cost because we will need the fees to fund the program and do the data collection. So how will the new requirements impact my existing septic system? If the system is operating properly, there's nothing that the homeowner needs to do. It's only when the system is either new or there is a failure that we will have to look at the system, and it would need to meet the current standards of the LAMP and the OTS policy. So another question we've received: what if my system fails? We absolutely still do variances. We consistently today still work with property owners that have, say for example, soils that aren't adequate for proper percolation of the waste dispersal field. We work with different types of systems, Advantex, to allow for proper dispersal but protecting public health and groundwater supply. And then another FAQ that we hear from folks is, what's the difference? A standard system versus a non-standard system, and giving these types of examples. So I wanted to provide you an example of an FAQ that I'll be coming up with to reach out to homeowners. So what are the next steps? We have to reach out to all of the property owners. Like I said, there are 942 non-standard septic system owners, which would require a maintenance and monitoring permit and require reporting. I've started outreach to the Realtors Association. They often have these questions. Going to also do outreach to the Contractors Board, website postings, and this FAQ. Try to disseminate it as well as we can for information. We are going to be working on developing the framework for our first annual report that's due in February to the Central Valley Regional Board. We're setting up our user and information capability on CDN, the Data Exchange Network, and we have to communicate or set up lines of standard communication with NID and all public water system owners as part of the state OTS policy. Should a system fail within a certain proximity to a public water supply or an NID service canal, we need to notify them that the system has failed. And it's simply a notification that we would need to do in writing and keep for our reporting to the state that we did our due diligence. And then, of course, setting up the framework for our 5-year report for the maintenance and monitoring. So right now, asking of the board to approve the resolution to adopt the LAMP manual, and in that LAMP includes the state's on-site wastewater treatment system policy. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You made a septic system sound like a bed of roses.
Did I?
Yeah.
They usually are.
I just have one question. Impacted waterway.
Yes, sir.
How is that determined, and who determines it, and what if there's another one that we think should be should get the preview of an impacted waterway?
It's an excellent question. Thank you, Supervisor Weston. That is done at the Clean Water Act and at the state level. They monitor through their own, they have monitoring wells that are established throughout the United States, but we have some here in California. These kinds of, they've determined based on testing from the monitoring wells that they put in major waterways, that essentially is a tributary feed to a larger body of water. I'm not quite certain how Wolf Creek, the monitoring wells were in play there and why they started monitoring that area, but I can understand that there may be other creeks, such as Deer Creek or other creeks that might have an influence, and that's a discussion I'd be more than happy to have with our Central Valley engineer, Eric Rapport. It's a question I can definitely pose to them.
Yeah, I think Deer Creek is a definite major creek that goes all the way to the Yuba River, so its tributary is, and it is taking a lot of whatever is on the land into the creek and then out. But my guess is Wolf Creek was probably affected by the mine. That's my guess.
Certainly.
But there's no active, well, there's active mines above, but there's from Deer Creek down there.
Well, I will say there's another impaired body of water in the eastern side of the county, and according to the reporter, Clean Water Act, it's impaired due to sediment. There's different types of impairment. What we're looking for specifically here is the pathogen and nitrogen loading, because that could be directly correlated to a failed disposal field. So that's the criteria under the local area management plan.
But aren't we looking on Wolf Creek, aren't we looking higher above, on the other side of Brunswick, up Idaho, Maryland Road, where that impairment is occurring?
Yes, so you are correct. Thank you, Supervisor Miller. So there's a section of Wolf Creek that does encompass that area, but it also passes through some residential density as well. And because it passes through some residential density, if the homes that are existing now, being close enough or on small lots, that could be a challenge for them should they have a failure and need a repair. A small lot will create a complication where we would eventually do a variance and then communicate with the state on their new system.
Yeah. There was another, one of the pages, there was something in reference to RVs being used and their impact on septic systems. Could you explain that a little bit?
Certainly, thank you. So Supervisor Miller, for a recreational vehicle, if they're parking that at a residence, the standard which the lamp implies is that this is not a permanent addition. The on-site wastewater treatment system is there to primarily serve the residents. When you have a recreational vehicle, you cannot park that and then tie into that same tank or same system on a permanent basis. That is not permissible under the lamp. So you could have, there are exceptions to that where you can have a recreational vehicle on a piece of property that you are developing and have a permit through the building department. You can live in your recreational vehicle while you're building your home as long as you have a potable water supply and you have a septic system to empty your waste into while the home is being built. There's another seasonal opportunity to stay in a recreational vehicle, but that has a 90-day limit. So there's no, I guess there's no allowance, for lack of a better term, to have RVs as a permanent housing unit for someone to live in long term. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Schofield. Amy, first a background question. Does the application of fertilizer onto land, can it lead to nitrogen loading in surface waters? Or likewise in groundwater?
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Absolutely. These are questions that we proposed. We had multiple discussions with the Central Valley engineer and their team. So we did say, do you consider that there would be runoff from other operations, whether it be agricultural, that would have an impact on surface and groundwater, and certainly fertilizer or agricultural purpose fertilizer could impact it. Yes.
Which leads, of course, to a heads up that this might be something important for CEQA analysis for the cannabis regulations.
Sure, correct.
With regard to the lamp, does it also apply to septic systems in incorporated areas, like Truckee, for example?
Absolutely. We have jurisdiction over the septic systems locally. So yes, we would incorporate, if there was any development or engineering done on the town of Truckee side, we would carry the permit for the on-site wastewater treatment system that's put in the ground. Okay. Yes.
And as you know, Nevada County falls within two water quality control boards, the Regional Water Quality Control Board and the Central Valley Water Quality Control Board. What implications does that bifurcation have with regard to our LAMP and our programs?
So the only situation that could arise is that for the Lahontan area, in compliance there, we want to make sure that should we have a new system going in, that we meet the Lahontan setbacks from the 100-year floodplain. So there are some parameters, I'm trying to look for the right word, that we would need Lahontan Water Board approval to put in a system that encroaches on that 100-year floodplain setback or requirement. There are some areas where they absolutely just cannot put in a system, but we would coordinate with the Lahontan Water Board for their approval on any system going in. It's the same as a variance going in under Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board jurisdiction. We would contact them, let them know the type of system and location, and make sure that they approve of our variance that we are allowing to go in.
Does any east of Summit monitoring go to Lahontan or go to Central Valley?
That question I'm not aware of. I'm sure that they get the monitoring data because they have their parameters set up where they will allow or not allow a dispersal field for an odds.
They being Lahontan?
Yes,
okay.
Lahontan, correct.
I mean, my understanding is that our monitoring data goes to Central Valley, so I'm presuming that they share with Lahontan, or somehow Lahontan gets that information.
Absolutely. Lahontan, during the process of establishing the LAMP, once we sent that final LAMP draft that was approved by the board in 2017, sent that off to the state for their approval, Lahontan participated in public comment regarding our LAMP and ensuring, we had conversations with the water board, ensuring that we would be in communication with them should there be any system going in that would fall within that boundary where they're not allowed for a dispersal field.
Okay, so assurances are in place then?
Yes.
Great, thanks.
One last quick one. What's the Water Quality Control Board trying to accomplish through the OWTS?
It's simply for the protection, long-term protection of surface and groundwater, and the maintenance of systems in, predominantly obviously affects rural counties, but it's to maintain all of the groundwater and surface drinking water, making sure we're not introducing pathogens and nitrogens into that.
So, Amy, I just have to make sure I understand this correctly. Basically, the defining characteristic of this whole program is size, is taking it back from the state, making sure we have local control, but it's for septic tanks and these smaller units, smaller areas where there are septic tanks going in, so that, for example, the leach field project that we're looking at out in Cascade Shores has to meet standards, separate group of standards, and those are maintained by the state. Is that correct? Yes. This doesn't apply to that. It's separate, but it's presumably parallel.
You're correct, Supervisor Hall. Thank you for the question. Yes, it is to have local oversight and or local control of all septic systems going in. We look at small septic systems, centralized or cluster systems, so we oversee connections of 1 to 5 and connections of 6 to 99. Okay. Anything greater than that falls under a state jurisdiction or state permit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Amy, just to clarify now, you said this only impacts those systems that are new engineered, or any new system?
Thank you, Chair Schofield. It would be any new system.
Any
so
new
it's
system.
But it also includes systems that might need a repair or replacement.
Yes, but if it is the term I learned, a flat that is working fine, where now it's not an issue at all, that person now or landowner now needs to annually report?
Thank you. If the system is a non-standard system, in other words,
non-standard.
Yes, sir. Yes. Has a pump and or alarm, yes, they will be required to do maintenance and monitoring. In other words, an annual report just showing that their system is functioning correctly.
But not if it's a standard flat system?
A standard system means it's gravity fed.
Okay.
So you could have a standard system, there would be a slight slope because it's gravity fed, so you would need the slope to flow the sewage into the dispersal field. Does that make sense?
You haven't answered my question. Does that person have to report annually?
Gravity? No, they do not. A standard system, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. I'm sorry.
I got just one more. There's a section in there on slope requirements over 30%, and this is probably something that Heidi would be interested in simply because of Cascade Shores and what's going on out there. Could you explain what's necessary in a case where the slope's greater than 30%?
Absolutely. Thank you, Supervisor Miller. So when you have a disposal area, due to the topography, and the slope is greater than 30%, we would need to have an engineer come out and do a report to ensure the soil stability. So in other words, if your disposal field is located in that slope, you want to ensure that as the system is working, it's not going to cause a situation that would disrupt the field and or disable the soil around. So creating obviously an obvious problem of a shifting of the side of the slope.
Okay. At this time, what I'd like to do is open the public hearing. And if you wish to comment, if you'll line up down here, and you have 3 minutes.
5 minutes for those who represent.
Seeing no public comment at this time, we will go ahead and close the public hearing portion. And if there's no other questions, are we going to need 2 motions here, Allison?
No, you can do both in one motion.
Okay. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Supervisor Miller, seconded Supervisor Hall. Madam Clerk?
District 4?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 5? District 2?
Yes. At this time, what I'd like to do is jump over our next agenda item and say, is there any supervisors here that have some announcements that they really feel they have to say? Versus waiting another 2 weeks. Heidi, did you have something? No.
I guess I would just say, since we had last night at the Cascade Shores, we had a public meeting. Tricia Tillotson was there, and Craig Griesbach, and a couple of folks from the wastewater treatment folks were there answering a lot of concerned questions by Cascade Shores participants about, number one, the leach field that we're looking at putting in there for their wastewater treatment, and number two, for the homes that have slid in the previous slide. I think it was a fairly difficult meeting. Fox 40 was there recording it, and we got a little clip on the news, which wasn't bad. I think, what's helpful is that I think it was great that so many people were there and got to hear directly from Tricia and Craig and myself that we care, that we're concerned, that we are doing all the right studies, and we committed to come back to them with this next study and help them walk through the technical aspects of it. It does look like there are people in that community with great technical skills who really want to dig into the details, and so I think the more of that information we can share with them in terms of the leach field at least, the better they'll be able to understand it, ask questions, and perhaps get comfortable with it. And they did raise a few issues, I think some new things that we want to make sure our contractors look at to make sure we are covering everything. So I think it was a productive meeting, and I think we'll be having more and keep the communication lines open out there to help.
Thank you for your efforts on that, and yours too. Anyone else?
Nothing for us.
I just want to point out next week is a CSAC legislative conference, so anybody would be interested in attending. It looks like a pretty good agenda. So, okay, seeing none, then we will go into closed session. And following the closed session, well, would you go ahead and read us into close?
Okay, we have 3 closed sessions today. The first is pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. County Council is requesting a closed session to determine whether litigation should be initiated by the county in 2 matters. The second item is pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The Board of Supervisors desires to hold a closed session regarding real property negotiations. The negotiators for the county are Tricia Tillotson, Public Works Director, and Yolanda Matrange, Bender Rosenthal, Inc., and the negotiator for the property owners is Mojtaba Sayed Monir on behalf of the property owner, Darwish LLC. Items under negotiation concern the price and terms of payment and the property interest to be obtained for a portion of property located at 2151 Higgins Road, Nevada County, California, APN 57-141-32. And the third closed session is pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1. The Board of Supervisors will hold a closed session to consider the appointment and employment of the county executive officer.
That's yours.
We had 3 items on for closed session. The first 2 items, nothing occurred in closed session, which is required to be reported out by law. On the 3rd item, Chair Schofield would like to make an announcement.
On the 3rd item, which is the recommendation for the appointment of the new CEO upon Mr. Haffey's retirement, the board voted unanimously to offer the position to Allison Lehman, and that will be upon Mr. Haffey's retirement and upon the contractual negotiations that will follow. Congratulations, Allison. Okay?
We adjourn?
Nothing else? We're adjourned.
Thank you. All right. Don't be careful.
Oh, really?